Hi everybody, Frankie V here with another episode of Working with Power Tools, and in this episode I'll be demonstrating a technique which is called Edit in Place. Now, as far as techniques goes, it's been around for quite a while, and it's been in general use in using in production type environments for building things like sets, components via proxy, as well as in architectural design where an element can be exported out as a in-place component, and then further development of that element can be done by somebody else and then re-imported or X-referenced back into a scene and using some of the features that are available in 3ds Max that manages that kind of stuff for you. So ideally, we have a building here, we have some detail, and we have a rock going through the wall, and we want somebody to fit this out or rig this out a little bit better with, say, make this a bookstore so they can do some internal shelving and so forth. And then we want to be able to have this component pop right back into place without having to realign everything as single elements. So this is where the idea of edit in place comes from, where if we have a design requirement that is void of, say, best practice of building things by component. So in this, for example, I have this really nice tiled off area here that I borrowed from one of the Unreal 4 samples that Epic has provided, and it kind of fits in with a kind of iteration type of idea that I want to put a fountain here, and I want to kind of progress and move forward as to inspired design. So I can make changes on the fly kind of thing, but sometimes things just don't fit. So in this case, the component idea of building things through instant copying. So for example, I have a bench here, and a bench here. These are all the same bench. They've just been sort of instant copied and pulled off. So the memory requirements and the performance envelope stays, the performance stays high, and memory footprint stays low. So we can afford to do other more special things, so to speak. But in this case, we have this circular pattern here that just looks like it's kind of been plopped onto the ground surface. So we don't have a disconnect between the two surfaces. And I need a custom element or component to make this sort of integrate. Now, if we want to stick with best practice, we certainly could lay down each brick one at a time around this circular component to complete it out. But then we'll land up with 100 bunch of bricks, and we land up with a somewhat of a scene management problem. Anybody who has had to work with a lot of little twitchy pieces and try making things fit can understand how frustrating that can be. But in this case, we want a custom ring around that fits and contours around our nice little tiled area here. And in this case, we can switch to the edit in place technique by simply selecting this and using this tiled area as our proxy of where we want everything to kind of line up, and do an export to FBX by selection. And you can see I already created this as a mountain ring proxy. So that's exactly what it is, because we're not going to be reusing this component at all. So now we can just sort of flip over to an editing package. Now you can use almost any editing package that you wish, as long as it supports FBX as far as importing and exporting goes. And another requirement that you should maintain is a unit setup for your system of 1 unit. 1 unit equals 1 centimeter. So this allows whatever we export and import back and forth from Unreal 4 to be relative in scale to one another, as well as I'll be demonstrating here in just a second, once I import our little proxy that we had already exported out. And we'll open this up, and we'll place this into Unreal 4. Now you can certainly drag and drop this in as a file merge, but word of warning, you got to kind of make sure that you have this 100% reference position between 000, which is right here, and its in place position within Unreal 4 to make sure that everything kind of snaps together with Lego blocks. So if we don't have, so by doing the import procedure through the file section, you make 100% sure that this is actually in alignment with Unreal 4 as far as world coordinate system goes. So I'll switch this over to an editable poly. I'm going to select by border, this little tool here, and then holding down and then shift to scaling mode, and then press shift to extrude the faces out to create that a key bounce there, to create that little ring around that I want to create a kind of a detachment. Now if I hit shift on my keyboard while making a different sub-object selection, it will select the connecting component, in this case polygons that are interconnected with the border selection. Press Control I, hit the delete key, and now we have the ring that I want to be able to use as to frame out that nice little tiled area. So by all intents and purposes, as far as a semi-completed component versus completed component as through iteration, you know, we can certainly call this done and move forward from that. But let's say, for example, we already have this imported and so forth, and we want to create an iteration here. Say, for example, add some detail in it. So a bevel, for example, so we can make this kind of look a little bit more like a brick type of object, and then we can get in and do a lot more fancy stuff. If we want, we can add in some detail to make this more brick looking, and then make some low poly or LOD objects off of the same frame in the same place, and what have you. But for our purpose, let's consider this as being fit to finish. So we'll go ahead and we'll just export selected. Once again, I've already done this, but in my my project folder, I have a folder that is just dedicated to customized map objects that are unique, that are not in no possible way could be made modular by its very nature. So anyways, flipping back over to Unreal 4, we can now see that we are ready here to bring this in as a custom fit to finish edit in place object. I'll drag and drop that and import it, and there it is right there. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this out into our scene. And normally, if this was a component object, it would snap exactly to the center of our transform relative to 0, 0, 0. But you can see our location here is offset relative to the position of where the transform is. But since we edit this in place, if we set our coordinate location for our object to 0, 0, 0, it snaps perfectly into position of where our nice little circular piece is located. So that more or less covers that kind of idea. Now, how can this be expanded upon is through the iteration process. Now, that should be number one on the top of your list. Always be working based on the iteration through workflow as to being able to develop the various different types of components that you want. So if you want, you can go out and hunt for all the doors and all the windows and so forth that you can. But if you have modeling skills, the advantage of the edit in place process is you can build your components through process. So in this case, for example, I can sort of drag in different components like the build in 3ds Max the kind of window that I want, kind of fit it onto box objects or proxy objects, so kind of line it up and do some cuts and changes, re-import. So for example, this building here, you can see is a edit in place object 000, 000, 000, 000, 000, because they're all unique in design. But later on, if I wish, I can go back and make these components modular so that they would line up as a component object such as that, as to being able to drag and drop. Now, how simple it is or how easy it is to make a edit in place object into a component object, well, it's really super simple, because all you do is you grab the object, you use your move tool, and you set that to 0, 0, 0. Now for whatever I want to use this for, if I do as an iteration, export selected, and I replace that ring, and I go over to Unreal 4 now again, and I select that ring and I do a re-import, look where it's moved to. Well, let's select that. Yeah, you can see where it imported to. It's below at 0, 0, 0. We now have a modular component made out of something that we had built based on edit in place. So hopefully that will allow you to, instead of waiting around for somebody to come up with the item that you need, that you can build up your own library of resources quickly and easily using this technique.